Hi, I'm Pamela Xaba. I'm one of the associate client partners at Franklin Covey South Africa. I'm also the founder of Nonkosi Creatives, an organization that specializes in diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. So my favorite thing to do after a long day, God knows we have long days, but it's really to catch up with my family because it gets so busy and sometimes we do not have enough time for family time, just to catch up with my kids, what they've been up to, what help do they need, and then take a shower, take a bath, and just relax generally. That's what I do.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Connect HR Hangouts. It's your favorite host, Baba Lomawela, your sizzling host. Welcome to episode 19 of our podcast, Connect HR Hangouts. And please, you know the house rules. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. In studio today, we have a very fabulous guest.
Okay.
She goes by the name Pamela Xaba. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Papalo. How are you? Thank you for
great.
having me.
You look absolutely stunning.
Well, I tried. I thought, okay, look, I'm a guest today because usually I interview people. I thought, okay, let me make an effort
Yeah.
and actually show up for this discussion. So thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And how are you feeling as a guest this time, being on the other side?
It's quite weird. Eh?
Yeah.
It really is,
I
but
can
I think,
imagine.
I just want to first and foremost commend you and your team
Thank
to, on this journey, because I think it's very important. The more of us that show up in these spaces and actually find our voices, elevate our voices in terms of uplifting the HR community, both professionally as well as in our societies, and talk about, topics and show up authentically for ourselves is very, very important. So the more I see more of us doing this type of work, that's when I'm thinking, okay, how can we best collaborate
100%.
And show up for ourselves? Yeah.
I love that. So the topic for today is the ability to be. And in studio, we have the perfect person who I believe has used that ability to just be, to be where you are today, and which you inspire us. And that's why we have you here. And before I just talk away, please give us a brief, not even brief, it's your time to shine. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? Who you are? Where do you work? Everything. We are here to listen to all of that.
Oh my. Okay, no pressure, right?
No
Papi?
pressure.
Okay, no, I think again, thanks for having me, Papi. Honestly, I think let's start on a personal level,
Yeah.
who I am. So I am a mother. First and foremost, I'm a mother to two girls. Well, my firstborn is 26 years old, and then I've got an 8-year-old. I am originally from KwaZulu-Natal. I came to Gauteng in 1999. So I came to study, and then I've never, and then I started working here. Been working in the HR space for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
So in various industries, I did obviously various HR roles, typically like what you would see for any HR professional, right? We do certain roles, we change jobs, we do other things as well. But in terms of where I am now, I run a business called Nonkosi Creatives, which is really a business that I started last year. It's just over a year now.
Okay.
When I exited my corporate job in June or May 2023. And what I do, I'm very passionate about inclusion, very passionate about transformation, very passionate about diversity holistically, right? So I got into this space because I really wanted to find my voice in the space. We hear a lot of things, what's happening in our workspaces, in our society, as far as inclusion is concerned, as far as being a mouthpiece and a voice for
Yeah.
marginalized communities, specifically given the history of our country and where we
Yeah.
come from as a people and a society. So I thought, how do I, find my voice in the space and where I could, because I was in a space where I really wanted to talk about my own experiences.
Yeah.
Because in life, as you go through life, you go through certain experiences that will give you joy, but you also go through certain experiences that will challenge you,
True.
challenge your thinking. And some of the experiences might not be necessarily pleasant, but then how do you then find a voice to tell those stories and listen to the stories of other people in a constructive manner, constructive platform to hear, right? Because I think being in HR, you talk to a lot of people.
True.
We talk to a lot of people. Sometimes we internalize some of the stuff that we hear, or we internalize some of
can
the stuff
imagine,
that we
yeah.
experience. And you really don't know. Sometimes we fear of being judged, and I said, okay, the first thing for me to do is let fear not hold me back. So I think I like the topic that you chose, that the ability to be,
Yeah.
because then you think that, okay, if I talk about topic X, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Right? Will someone kill me? Because I'm not hurting anyone's name. I'm just merely talking about my own experiences,
Exactly.
whether good or not so good experiences, so that I can learn from that, so that I can find healing from that, so that I can learn from the stories and the experiences of other people, so that we show up as a collective, right? Because I said to you earlier, it's very important that we learn to operate in a collaborative manner rather than competing.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of competition, and sometimes competition can be unhealthy, and it
100%.
hinders people from showing up as their authentic selves, right? So I've said a mouthful, but generally that's what I'm passionate about. And I also just wanted to use my voice and find my voice in this space. So I hope that helps to just give you context.
That helps a lot, and you do a lot of great work, and we've been stalking you. So we've obviously stalked you, getting to know you, and
yes,
I think what stood out for us is your leadership qualities.
Yes.
And I think you've spoken about, collaborating as opposed to competing.
Yes.
For you, what are the skills that you implemented in your leadership approach that helped you to be or to end up where you are today?
Yes, No, that's a very great question, Bapalo, because I think leadership is broad, as we know.
True.
It's a very, very broad subject. And one cannot, hold the claim to fame to say that I'm the best leader that ever was, because we know that we are human beings, and being human beings, we are imperfect. So we have those things that we do really, really well, but then we also have our challenges. We also have our gaps where we have to learn certain things, how to be, how to show up in certain spaces. And because it's a journey, right? So along the journey, because you are human, you're also bound to make mistakes. You're also bound, to not maybe show up fully as yourself. So it's very important then to be kind to yourself and kind to others, right? So that you do not show up as a miss-know-it-all type of a personality, because you'll never be. So I think life in general, embracing the notion of lifelong learning, it is very important. So I think for me, that's something that I really, really embrace, because I think this past 12 months, for me, I think was the most challenging space really in my life, where I found myself having to start my own business. I found myself and not knowing, right? Because you're coming into the space and you really don't know what you don't know, right? But you know that I want to do 1, 2, 3. But sometimes certain things are not so obvious, because I think when you are working for an organization, you've got the brand behind you, it gives you leverage in terms of how you can show up. You've got the title title, this big
Yes.
title behind you, so people don't, because the title and the brand that you work for, it gives you leverage. People don't sometimes second guess the things that you say because you've
True.
got all, but the minute you are on your own, right, you are really on your own. Yeah, so I think it takes a great deal of courage then, in your words, to show up, and the ability to say,
be.
look, and be okay with making mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's part of leadership. So you get into a space where you embrace self-awareness that you look, I will make mistakes along the journey. But in you making those mistakes, you own up to them and then you keep it moving. In that way, what it does, it then people see the authentic way that you show up, the authentic way that you tell your story without so much discrediting other people.
Yes.
Whether you had a good relationship or not so good relationship with people, it doesn't matter. It's about you personally as an individual to say, if you went through a certain experience, what was this experience supposed to teach me?
Yes.
Right? What is the lesson that I'm taking from this, rather than being a victim and say, oh, look at me, they did this to me, or whatever. So, and knowing that you are only in control of yourself, you're not in control of other people and how they show up where you are concerned. So I think I'm answering your question in sort of a long-winded response, but I'm just really trying to give you, examples why it's important to embrace a leadership style that says, I am human first and foremost. I do not know everything. I will make mistakes along the journey, but in doing so, I'm also okay.
Yes.
Being in spaces where I find my voice and where I can talk about the things that I'm passionate about, because then what it does, it attracts you to spaces like this, like yourself, where, where, nice and wonderful people at Connect HR actually invite you to talk about your journey.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Yes.
And I wanted to actually commend you for taking that leap from, having a brand back you up and to then starting from scratch and building your own brand. I wanted to also find out what motivated you to take that jump from, working in a big organization and then starting your business from the ground and working up.
Yeah. No, I think certain things, they come with experience, number one, but they also come with owning up to your own mistakes.
Yeah.
And really evaluating your life journey, and for me, it was particularly saying that there has to be more to life.
True.
Than certain things, because I think being in the HR space, some things are just really routine and some things tend to be quite repetitive, and I thought, look, I am where I am now. And I think I'm probably, maybe age has got nothing to do so much with it. But for me, it was, how do I show up in my full womanhood? And actually, because I think when you're also working for someone else, you're sort of like restricted in terms of the things that you can do or the things that you can say. So I really wanted to use my experience, having been in HR for over 2 decades, to actually, really be in spaces where I'm free, to be myself and contribute in those spaces. But I knew that it was not going to be easy. But I think more than anything, I also wanted to, because like I said to you earlier, Papalos, that in your journey, some of the things will give you joy and some of the things will, give you a bit of sadness in your life, depending whatever experiences that you went through. But I think for me, particularly last year, was really a time of self-reflection and introspection about my life holistically, both personally and professionally, what it is that I needed to do more to show up and grow in certain spaces and learn certain things. So that's what really, really pushed me. And I'm glad that I'm at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I've gotten a chance to actually meet new and nice and wonderful people that I would not have
True.
ordinarily met had I not taken this step. So I hope that helps. So it's a loaded response.
Yeah, no, which
I'm conscious of time, but so that's what it's really about, because I think in one's journey, as part of really maturing into your full self, at some point one has to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And actually go into spaces or unfamiliar territory and grow with it.
I love that because you're speaking to me.
Yeah.
I think last year, November,
Yes.
I went into unfamiliar territory, and
Yeah.
I can relate so much with what you're saying, because there's so much that it does to you, and it opens your mind. So I can 100% relate to what you've just said.
Yeah.
And now you are at Franklin Covey.
Yes, now I'm one of the associate client partners at Franklin Covey.
Congratulations.
No, thank you for that. And maybe I'll just tell you briefly how that came about.
Yes,
because I
please.
think just to give you a practical example of what collaboration means and what it does, so I think my journey last year really, it landed me working with the team at IPM.
Okay.
The Institute of People Management. I was like really working for them, but they saw what I was doing in my space as non-corporate creatives.
Okay.
Having run the Diversity Roundtable podcast and really showing up boldly and talking about the things that people think about, but they don't want to say.
Yes.
They don't want to, but it's also how you say it. It's how you say those things in a constructive way. And so they happened to be planning their IPM convention that took place in Sun City last November. And then I was approached by the team there, and one of them being the CEO then, Sabelo Myeni, said, "Look, Pam, can you come and do a podcast series for us at the IPM convention?"
Nice.
I was like, "Oh, okay." Someone is noticing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's Andy Saliba that referred them to,
Go
to
Andy.
me. So I then went to the IPM convention and I did the podcasting, and then I happened to interview nice and really wonderful HR professional, really nice and wonderful business people, entrepreneurs. And one of the people that I then interviewed was Malini Ramsamy.
Okay.
The CEO of Franklin Covey South Africa. Really had a nice interview with her, and I left it at that. I didn't think much of it other than that, she really came across as very self-assured, very confident.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow, listening to her story and, how she got Franklin Covey into South Africa, I thought, sure, you know what? There's hope for some of us, because then I just started my own a business like 6 months prior. And I thought, look, if this lady can do it, surely there's hope for some of us. And I left it at that. Lo and behold, fast forward, so Feb this year, she phones me and she's, "Hi, Pam, do you remember me?" And I'm like, "Remember me? I talk to so many people." I was like, "Hi, do you remember me? I'm so and so." I was like, "Oh, yes, certainly I do," because she's one of the personalities that she's unforgettable, basically.
Yes.
And so I was like, "Yes, I do." And she's like, "Yeah, no, I really liked our discussion, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to do some work with you. Do you mind getting on board? Let's collaborate. Let's see how we can do things together." "Sure, yes." So I spent some time with her then between Feb and March. And the more I went into what Franklin Covey is all about, because you would know it's a global organization operating in 160 countries. And they have actually developed, I think it's over 30 million leaders worldwide. Sure. And I thought, it's such a good brand. I mean, it's such a big brand, rather. And I thought, but why is we don't know much about Franklin Covey South Africa? Where is the brand presence? So we started talking about some of those things. I said, yes, then I'll come on board and be one of the associate client partners and help you elevate the brand. But I think also what drew me in terms of the work that Franklin Covey South Africa actually does is really around leadership development.
Okay.
And developing leaders at all levels, instilling greatness, instilling habits of effectiveness in people, which I thought, what, it's funny how the universe works. To your point, that when you get into certain spaces, you then start attracting like-minded people. You start attracting those things that you really needed. Because what I really needed at that time to boost my confidence and to boost my self-esteem, again, because as you can understand, coming out of a corporate environment, then you're on your own.
Yes.
Sometimes your self-esteem can take a
True.
knock, right?
True.
And I was like, oh, okay, actually there's someone who believes that, someone who holds such a big brand, they believe that I'm doing great work. But what also stood out for me was, I really needed to polish up my leadership, some of my leadership traits as
Yes.
well, in terms of letting go of some of self-limiting
Yes.
habits, self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting behaviors. How do I show up in my full self? And the more I got into the Franklin Covey content, it's, when you get those aha moments and you get that thing that says, you know what, I'm in the right space. And I'm just really particularly excited that, more and more people then will get to, experience the great work that Franklin Covey does, because it really, one, it's a confidence booster.
Yes.
That's what it has done for me, because people are like, oh, actually you associated with this big brand. And then
Yes.
immediately that, lifts your self-esteem, that lifts your confidence, but also knowing that I can help other people,
Yes.
right, who may be battling with some leadership qualities that need to get out of certain type of limiting behaviors. So it's really, really great work that I'm passionate about, and I'm glad that our paths crossed at this point in my life. Yeah.
Sure.
So I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that does make sense. Ladies and gents, I know that you're having fun in the episode. Please just hold on for a sec, watch the ad, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that 80% of workers globally do not sit behind a desk to do their work? There are security personnel, construction workers, cleaners, and factory workers. Connect HR effortlessly distributes password-protected payslips and other important information to employees via SMS. Empower your frontline workers today for only 5 rands.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for watching our very amazing ad. So, Pam, you spoke about being a podcast host, right? And I think I'm more intrigued about your experience and your journey. May you kindly just touch on that and maybe give our viewers just an overview of what you talk about on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks, Bapala, because I think it will help to give that some context.
Yes.
I did mention earlier that I think one of my passions, as most HR people that are pro-transformation, is really having a voice around diversity and inclusion. That was mainly driven by, I think I might have said earlier when we were talking informally that I'm a natural introvert.
Yes.
And a lot of people find that very hard to believe. This is because I don't come across that way, so, but believe you me, I am. So this is a learned behavior for me in terms of public speaking. I had to say, look, for me to have an impact, to get out of my shy shell, what is it that I needed to do, right? So earlier in my career, or in my early career days, I took up public speaking. It was then the Toastmasters, one of the public speaking platforms that I joined. But I then fast forward then to answer your question around podcasting, was starting your own business. You sort of like think, okay, Pamela, for the longest time, people know Pamela as the HR professional at Company X, the HR professional who does that, and they see you in HR spaces. But how do I actually, as most of us do, we use podcasting to actually as a marketing space or
True.
marketing platform for our
True.
businesses. So I think then starting a one-woman business last year, I
Yeah.
was like, how do I get this brand out there? So when people ask me, what is Nonkosi Creatives? What is it that you do? You just only talk about diversity and inclusion. I also do talent acquisition. I
Okay.
also curate events for other people, So I started that also to find my voice in terms of talking about my own experiences, around this space. Like I mentioned before, that we experience things that give us joy. I know I sound repetitive, but I cannot stress this enough, because there's a lot of HR people out there who suffer in silence.
True.
Who go through certain things and they don't know how to talk about them. And actually, I was actually one of those people, and the reason why for me, I figured that, mental health, when you talk about mental health challenges, it's really real.
True.
It's a real phenomenon that affects a lot of professionals out there, especially HR people, because we internalize a lot of our experiences, some of them that are absolutely painful when it comes to the spaces of diversity and inclusion, especially for women of color. I can say this without really not being shy about
Yeah.
it, because it is a fact. We go through these things, and some of the experiences are actually quite shameful. It comes with a lot of trauma. It comes with a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I wanted to find my voice in that space to say, look, maybe if I talk about certain concepts and certain real issues around diversity, I will find some healing.
Yeah.
But then also, how have other people overcome some of the challenges? So I thought that's why when I inviting guests in my podcast, I was very intentional.
Yes.
Who is it that I'm inviting? What are they going to be talking about? Are they willing to share certain aspects about their journey?
Yes.
And I mean, my first episode was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes long, and I was just solo myself talking
Yeah.
about the spaces around GBV, talking about harassment, talking about the tall poppy syndrome, talking about severe mental health issues, because I think as Black women, and when we get into certain spaces, we become sort of like trophies, right? Because we're in these positions, and people, there's so much expectation.
Yeah.
Sometimes people forget that we are also human, and people expect so much, from us. We almost become like these unicorns.
Yeah.
And sometimes we then neglect our own well-being. We neglect, because I'm a natural born introvert, I also got into a spaces of people pleasing. I was such a people pleaser for such a long time, and actually didn't realize how much it affected my mental health, right? So I think I've done 14 episodes of that diversity roundtable. But, and one of the people that actually stand out for me that I interviewed was a gentleman called Mr. Good News Cadogan.
Okay.
Really, who gave me some insights around, the history of our country, our society, and what it means to just show up for yourself.
Yeah.
I've also interviewed Dr. Gule. I've also interviewed Ann Pratt, who's in Harvard. I've also interviewed Malini Ramsamy, the CEO of Franklin Covey. I've interviewed a very good friend of mine, Khinwa Habal, who's based in the Middle East. I used to work with her in the Middle East because I also spent some time in the Middle East for 2 years between 2015 and 2016. So amongst other people that I've interviewed. So it has made me rich, rich in knowledge. And also in this journey, because I'm also studying, because there's another aspect that I neglected for a long time to focus on my studies. So I think being in this space of podcasting and you put things out there, right? So people start being curious then to say, who is this Pamela Xaba? What makes her talk about the things that she talks about? You know, what makes her invite certain personalities and things like that. So it's really contributing to the diversity and inclusion voice, amongst other voices, amongst other very influential voices that we find in this space in our country. That's why for me it's very important. The notion of collaboration is very important and not competing. And it's very important for HR professionals not to compete, right? Because I think the HR topics are quite generic. They are quite, we know, right? If you're in the HR space, typically the topics that you'll talk about are your HR topics. So let us not try and outshine each other to say, okay, who is the most influential diversity and inclusion person, or who is the most, which is the most popular podcast, rather than wearing a collaborative hat and say, how do I support Bapalo and connect HR, to elevate her voice, and come into her space and add to the good work that she is doing. So that's really the idea, amongst others, like I've mentioned, around the podcast, finding my voice, helping others find their voices, talking about their experiences with the hope of helping our young professionals as well as tapping into some of the spaces where entrepreneurs operate to find out, for them to be successful and where they are, what is it that they had to go through so that our young people can learn from that and learn from our mistakes as well, So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that really helps. And I can't stress enough how much I think you inspire me.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that you share that I really, really resonate with. And which leads to my next question, where as you talking, I'm just thinking of what is your personal experience, one of your personal experiences that have kept you so grounded, and when you look at that experience, you think to yourself, I'm not going there, but it's keeping you going.
Yeah. Look, I think that the spirit of Ubuntu, without sounding very cliche or anything like that, but it's very real, So I think if you you get into a space of embracing humility, and understanding that I do not know everything, and that I've put myself out there. I've said I'm starting business X. So, then when the going gets tough, I cannot now turn back and say I'm no longer doing business X, because people, and then you think, oh my goodness, I can't turn back now. I've invested so much into this thing. I've invested my time, my money, my personality, my reputation, you've invited other people in your space and whatnot. But also because it's like, I've started this thing, I have to see it through. I have to make sure that it works, because other than just being known and showing up in certain spaces, you have to make a living, right? You've got bills to pay, so it's very important that you make this thing work. It's part of who you are and your job right now, right? So as it's been tough. Let me not lie, Bapalo, it's been really, really tough. There have been days and nights where I would lay in my bed and like, what have I done? So especially last year. But I think as then you get into to know more and more people that operate in these spaces that are doing similar things, and you hear their challenges, like, actually, I'm going to be okay, So I think the most important thing is find the community, find the like-minded individuals that are willing to share information, with you. So I think what has worked for me is that because I I don't necessarily compete. I don't take the competing approach to things, So when I get into certain spaces, I'm like, okay, how do we get more people to experience this? So I find that for you to receive joy and success, you have to give out joy to other people, right? So I think for me, it's just what makes sense, That's why I like the Franklin Covey model as well, because it talks a lot about win-win.
Yeah.
So the abundance mindset, not that one of scarcity where you like want to hog stuff and whatnot and say, no, if I'm going to make 100 rands, let this 100 rand be mine and mine only, It's like, it's not going to kill you that if you make 100 rand, how do I give Papalo 20 rand and this other person, I'll still make money, right? So there is more for all of us. There's more to go around for all of us, so... Yeah, win-win mindset is very important.
Win-win mindset.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, that is Pam Xaba with some knowledge bombs, wisdom bombs. She's dropping bombs all over the place. And just to show you a little bit of our appreciation, we've got something for you.
Yes.
Just to say thank you for making time for us.
Yes.
We know how busy you are.
Yeah.
But here's a little kind gesture just to say.
And I get flowers. Thank you so much.
That's just to say thank you.
Yes.
Really appreciate your input and just your warm presence in this place.
Yes.
What are your parting words to our viewers?
Yes. No, so I really first, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. My parting words, this topic really resonates with me, the ability to be, right? So do not let fear stand in your way. Get to understand who you are as a person, even on a spiritual level. Who you are. In that way, you will find it easy to show up as your authentic self. Challenges and all, because there'll always be challenges, but also learn to embrace how to collaborate with others and not so much competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gents, where do people find you actually? LinkedIn?
Yes, no, just go to LinkedIn. You'll find everything about me. And LinkedIn, I am Mobile Pamela Xaba.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ladies and gents, see you next week with another banging episode. It's your sizzling host, Babi Mawela. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.